Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully, as you can see and as you can hear, we have a lot of our technical issues over the last 2 weeks all figured out and taken care of. Back with a new webcam, back on the microphone, no more of the little lapel pins. So, hopefully, everything sounds and looks better because that was a rough 2 weeks. Getting stuff transferred over from an iPhone over into the video production stuff and then out to you proved to be an absolute nightmare. So I am very glad that that is done, over with, and we are back with our regular equipment. So, yay, go team. An announcement for those here in Kansas City. I just saw something the other day that I want to make sure everyone was aware of. Apparently, in August, we have all run the Spencer C. Duncan Make It Count 5K. That has been canceled this year. I believe it is the mother of Spencer C. Duncan. He was a service member, no longer with us, and this race was carried on in his name and in his honor. I believe it is his mother has fallen ill, and so they are just with taking care of her. They are not able to do the race this year. It's been held every year in Gardner, Kansas for quite a few years now. But I did see that that race was canceled. So you might want to go ahead and update your race calendar if you had that listed. I'm sure that if you had already registered for it, they will take care of you. But I wanted to put that out there. That was definitely one that was on our calendar, something I've done for the last several years that we will now need to take off, find a different race. But all the best to the people affected, to those involved with the race. Again, hopefully you guys can be back next year better than ever. But best wishes from the podcast to all of you guys for whatever that whole situation is. And again, I'm not privy to all of it. This is just what I saw on social media, but I wanted to pass it along to the rest of you. So no Spencer C. Duncan Make It Count 5K this year. And again, we hope that next year they will be back. This weekend for the podcast, it was the first weekend in a very long time that there were no races. We did not have a race this weekend. I hope the folks who ran the Joplin Memorial Run had a great time, down in Joplin, Missouri. They've been doing a run ever since the F5 twister that took several lives and annihilated that town. This was the last year for it, though. They cited declining registration and just the overall effort it takes to put on an event of this size. So this was the very last one this past weekend. I hope it went well. I hope anyone who ran it had a great time. Kudos to them. That was a long running race, and now they're going to head off into the sunset. And again, understand. So good job out of that. I know they ran the Cleveland Marathon. I know they ran the historic half marathon out in Virginia. That's put on by the Marine Corps Marathon folks. They do the historic half. That race was run this weekend. There were races around town. The Flash Dash was around Kansas City, among some others. So there were a lot of options. Oh, and then those who went out to Colorado for the Colfax Half Marathon. Great job out of everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend of running and safe travels and all those good things. As for me and the podcast, I think I kept it kind of hush hush. I know I told a few folks. My weekend consisted of this book. This book right here in my hands. Yep, this big old monster right here. As you can see, I went and took a weekend course to be a certified running coach. That is what I did. This is through the Roadrunners Club of America. I took their certified level 1 running coach course. Now, I have not passed the final test yet, as I just got that link to take the test last night, and I hope to do that within the next week or so. And then I will be a certified running coach. Do I plan on taking on clients? Well, short answer, no. I do not expect that I'm going to make any money off of this. This was something I wanted to do to increase my own knowledge. And there's a lot in this book that I'm going to bring to the podcast. And then I did it to kind of lend some legitimacy to the podcast. And so maybe someday, if there was ever any interest in me being a running coach, if anyone's like, hey, I would love for you to develop me a plan and be my running coach, we'll talk. I don't see a big demand. What was really funny about taking this course, of course, all the case studies and all the people, well, not all the people, but a lot of the people in it, and just a lot of the conversations, they all revolve around dang near elite level runners. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, none of these numbers or paces or race strategies or whatever's pertain to me, but I understand why they are being used for this particular, course. There were, I'm sure, a lot of elite level runners. The two gentlemen who were the instructors for this course, elite level runners, very talented individuals. I just was kind of chuckling to myself all weekend. It's like this is why I'm not going to be an actual running coach, and I'm doing this more for the information and then anything I can use to help the podcast. I cannot pace you to a Boston qualifying time. I cannot. Now, could I draw up a course and maybe get you there? Possibly. The chance is not zero. However, I couldn't do it with you. And one of the things I think it takes to be a very popular or a very good running coach is you got to be able to do the stuff with the people rather than just stand there and hold the clipboard and just say, do this, do that. You know, one of the things, there are those dictator coaches. That would not be me. Now, if you are perhaps an hour 5Ker who wants to bring yourself down to a 45-minute 5K and then maybe, even get a little under that, I could help you there and I'll do it with you. But again, that is a different issue for a different day. But this was a very well done course. It was a very long weekend for yours truly. So it started at 7 a.m. Central Time and it ended at 4 p.m. Central Time, Saturday and Sunday, with very small breaks in between. This was not one of the situations where, we've covered everything, we'll let you guys out an hour early. Oh, heck no. We were in it for the long haul both days. So this was a really, really long weekend for yours truly. A lot of information, a lot to digest. But there's things that I was marking in the book. It's like, I can't wait to take that to the podcast and talk to you guys about it so that we all gain knowledge and we gain, the benefits of this running coach course. So anyway, that's what I did this weekend. It was super great time. Shout out to the Road Runners Club of America. Great course, well done. And to my 36 other running coach hopefuls from that class, I hope everyone has a very, very successful running coaching career, and best of luck to all of you. There was one guy, shout out to Ryan, who actually had heard of the podcast when we before we got to this program. So that was super cool. Completely made my entire weekend by knowing that. But shout out to you, sir. It was nice to meet you, and thank you very much for listening. So that is kind of the pre stuff. Okay. What we talked about last week, what I said we were going to do because we didn't have a podcast, we're going to do, but we're going to do it over the course of 2 episodes. So there was, as I told you, a big old brouhaha with the Boston Marathon this year that I really didn't hear about until, a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago. We're going to talk about it. There's a long article about it. I'm going to read you this long article today. Bear with me. And then I'll give you a little bit of my take. I have lined up a very special guest for next week to continue this conversation and to take it in kind of other directions. So we're not going to start and resolve the conversation this week. We're going to start it. And I told you, when I post this especially on Facebook, which is our main social media platform, when you hear this video, I would love you to type in your opinion and let me know kind of what you think about it. We keep all of our comments within the realm of good taste. We keep all of our comments respectful. Even when we disagree with each other, which it's the running world, you can see things 1,000 different ways and agrees with no one because everyone has different perspectives and point of views. We are all going to be respectful because that is how we do around here. Okay. But I would love to know what you think after I read this very long article, and I'll just kind of give you a little bit of my take. I'm not going to go crazy. I know some people are going to be like, I hope Kyle gets on his soapbox and absolutely annihilates these folks. I am not going to do that, at least not this week. That might come next week. But that's kind of where we're at for this week. But yes, I have a very, very special guest coming to join us and talk about this next week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So let me grab my little tablet here that has the article. Here we go. And I've got it. Like I said, this is a long read, but I found it fascinating. A page turner, if you will. Or a finger scroller, since everything is electronic now. Anyway, this is titled Controversy Arises Over Boston's Moving 6-Hour Results Cutoff. And this is by Sarah Lorge Butler, and this is Runner's World. Okay. And she starts in basically with a case study. So we're starting with a name here. Laura Castor wants to be clear. She knew what the Boston Marathon rule was about official finishers. She was aware she had 6 hours from the time the last starter crossed the starting line to finish the race in order to be considered official. Her problem? She didn't know what time the last starter crossed the starting line. Castor, 52, from Idlewild, California, was in Corral 7 of Boston's final wave, Wave 4, and she crossed the starting line at 11:25 a.m. So for how many more minutes were runners crossing the starting line behind her? Are they a minute behind me? 5 minutes? She wondered. Every minute would count for her. As it turned out, the final starter crossed the line at 11:28 a.m., so Castor needed to finish by 5:28 p.m. to be considered official. Castor typically runs about 5:40 for a marathon. She finished Tokyo on March 3rd at 5:41.50. Tokyo was her fifth of the World Marathon Major six-star challenge. Boston was to be her sixth star. To gain entry to Boston, she had to run for a charity, Team for Kids. She raised more than $5,000. Part of more than 40 million Boston Marathon organizers say they race, the race raises through charity runners every year. And she treated Tokyo as a long run for Boston. But the warm weather, on Marathon Monday, April 15th. The slower runners start later in the day. And from early on, Castor knew she was in trouble. Her stomach was upset. She couldn't take in all the fluids she needed. She was grabbing ice every time a spectator offered it. Still, she plugged along, hitting every timing mat, even though the mats are rolled up along the course on pace with the 6-hour finish time. She passed halfway in 2:58.40. At numerous points, Castor became aware of a vehicle trailing runners like her, who were going at about 6-hour pace. And she asked a volunteer at one of the timing mats, "How do I know if I'm going to be official?" Castor said he pointed at the car and told her she needs to finish in front of it. I was like, okay, that's a definite answer, she said. I'm not going to look at my watch. I'm going to focus on not throwing up and being in front of that car. Castor was well ahead of the car on Commonwealth Avenue as she turned right onto Hereford Street. Just to be safe, as she approached the finish line on Boylston, Castor took a final look behind her. No sign of the official car. She crossed at 5:31 p.m. in 6 hours, 5 minutes, 59 seconds. Volunteers put her in a wheelchair and sent her to the medical tent. From there, she was transported to a hospital with high blood potassium levels. She was released later that evening. At the hospital, she looked at the results and realized she was not official. She had a gun time and a net time, but no place. Castor was devastated. All the training, all the time and expense of pursuing the 6 stars, and she wasn't really done. I've worked for years, was so excited to have gotten to this point, she said, of her progress. I was just leveled. Castor's coach is Meb. All right, we just know him as Meb. I don't try the last name. An Olympic silver medalist and the 2014 Boston Marathon champion. On the phone with him, she broke down. He told her, "I couldn't be prouder of you. You missed it. We both know that you completed all 6. You're not official, but you showed grit. You showed determination." So why did all this happen? All right, allowing the roads to reopen. Castor was not alone. Chris Lotzbaum, a BAA spokesman, wrote in an email to Runner's World that 497 people appeared to have crossed the Boston finish line this year after it officially closed. Volunteers staffed the area and handed out medals for approximately 4 hours or until 9:45 p.m., longer than the race had ever continued, to note the times before. Of those 497, many were within few minutes or seconds of 5:28 p.m. Courtney Blackburn, also in pursuit of her 6th star in Boston, missed by 37 seconds. In an email exchange after the race with BAA officials, she asked how she was to know what the cutoff time was after she had started running. She, too, was told about the car, with flashing lights on top, going at a 6-hour pace and alerting runners if they were falling behind. Blackburn never saw the car. She finished well ahead of it, and she, too, recorded a split at every finish line mat along the way. Lotzbaum confirmed the car was there, a road reopening vehicle, he called it, meant to inform runners that roads were reopening and aid stations were shutting down. Without knowing specifics, I can't comment on the individual instances referenced, he wrote. I can say that we are reviewing our processes and procedures in regards to final finishers for future Boston marathons. Blackburn crossed the finish line and picked up 2 medals, the Boston Marathon Medal and the World Marathon Major 6-star medal. Only later did she realize she wasn't official in Boston's result and therefore isn't official in the World Marathon Major results either. She has the medals, but no online record of her achievement. But if the finish line remains open and the timing continues, why not allow runners to be official? Or at least communicate a time. For example, 5:30 p.m. that is consistent from year to year. Why use a moving target? Boston's strict cutoff is part of an agreement the race has with the cities and towns along the route. The 6-hour time limit is in place to support the communities throughout which the race runs to allow their road reopening program to commence as planned, Lotzbaum wrote. We understand we could do even more in communicating the closing time on race day, and we are looking to enhance that messaging to all runners for next year to ensure everyone is clear on the time limit and the time that the finish line will officially close on race day, Lotzbaum wrote. So this is a grace period. A few runners who are much slower than 6 hours get to start in earlier waves, which gives them more time to finish. For some runners close to the 5:28 p.m. cutoff, starting in an earlier corral of wave 4 would have meant the difference between an official and unofficial finish. In 2015, some members of Boston's Quarter Century Club, people with 25 or more consecutive Boston finishes, were concerned about the 6-hour limit, which was imposed for the 2016 race, so race officials moved them to wave 2. Problem solved. For others, the problem remains, and the moving cutoff appears to affect more women than men, older runners more than younger runners, and many runners of color. Hector Espinal, that's Espinal, Espinal, like Blackburn, only discovered well after the race that he wasn't official. He wrote on Instagram on April 18th, despite crossing the finish line, finishing the race, and receiving my medals, this morning I was informed that I did not complete the Boston Marathon in that time allotted to be considered an official finisher and a World Marathon Major 6-star finisher. The post has more than 10,000 likes and 1,000 comments, the majority of them supportive. Elite runner Mary, I can't say the last name, of Kenya, who was 6th in a 2-hour, 24-minute, 24-second, wrote, No, you are a 6-time world major marathoner and a hero. Boston is a race that has at times struggled with its image, which critics call elitist. Spectators last year accused the race of over-policing enthusiastic fans, most of whom were people of color at mile 21 cheer zone, which prompted a lawsuit. Runner's World reported in 2022 about the BAA's obscure, largely white, invitation-only membership group, which is involved with governance and of the organization. Okay, side note here. If you guys go back and listen to my episode of my trip through Boston in 2023, I mentioned this. The cheer station that in my mind was just down having a great time, that was actively getting shut down by the police as I ran through it. Now, I had never researched it after I talked about it on the episode, but I did not know until I read this article that a lawsuit had actually been filed because of this. So that's huge. And again, I'm just one guy, but I was one guy who was running through doing the Boston Marathon as that happened. I know exactly what they're talking about. And for me, this one guy, that crowd was awesome. And they were going ape stuff for anyone who came along. I thought they were great. They were very motivational, very organized, and not at all an issue. So one guy's opinion, but I definitely couldn't figure out why the Boston PD were kind of shutting that down. Anyway, I continue on. To many observers in the running community, setting a fixed finish time would be an easy way to help the race show it is concerned about runners of varying abilities, not just the front of the pack. Other races in the World Marathon Majors are much more lax about their finishing times, with the exception of Tokyo, which has 9 cutoff points along the route, and runners are stopped if they lag behind. There are no questions, however, about where they stand. It's true. But the finishers of London, New York, and Chicago appear in the results with times hours slower than the race's published cutoff times. Berlin, which has a posted cutoff time of 6:15, stays open for an extra 15 to 20 minutes before the Brandenburg gate closes, according to previous finishers. Blackburn won't be back to Boston anytime soon. I don't know, honestly, if I would do it again without major changes to actually be inclusive, of non-qualifying athletes, she wrote in a message to Runner's World. I think BAA officials are putting out "we are trying" vibes without actually trying. Castor, on the other hand, plans to try again. The uncertainty while she was on the course and the wrong information she was given about the official vehicle were what upset her. She doesn't know if it would have made a difference for her had she been aware of the times she had to beat. And then she says in a quote, "But I would like to have had the opportunity to have tried," she said. "That's the part that I'm sore about." So that is what I read about this year's Boston Marathon. I definitely found it surprising. And it brings up the question that I will tackle today, not the one that we're going to tackle next week. Yes, Boston is in a very elitist race. We know this. This is not new information. This is not just my opinion. It was clearly in the article. It is a very elitist race. Now, I was able to run it in 2023. Yes, yes. I got in on a charity bib. So wasn't I an elite level runner? No, absolutely not. I did not qualify for the Boston Marathon. There are times people ask me, "Have you done Boston?" I say yes. "Oh, wow, that's really great. I did it on a charity bib." Oh, and their excitement drops because I did not achieve the elite level status that a lot of Boston qualifiers achieve. I get it. I understand that completely. It does not take away from the fact that I am a Boston Marathon finisher, and I am an official finisher of my time of 5 hours and 48 minutes. So I didn't have to worry about a car. Now, the thing that gets me about this is the car. The car in this very, very loose cutoff time. Very loose. For a race as elitist and as strict as Boston, you can't just be, well, it's this amount of time after the last person crosses the start line. You don't know when that is. You have no freaking clue. And then there's this car, this ghost car almost, that did not actually finish the race. And I get it. If you don't want to send your pace car all the way down Boylston Street and have it drive over the finish line, okay, that's fine. But where did it turn off? And how much time is left after it turns off? I think this moving limit they have, okay, it's X amount of time after this person starts, whenever this person may start. I don't know. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I don't think that is fair to the back of the pack runners, who, of course, we have the heart for. I think that it's too subjective. You know, who's to say when the last runner starts? I know the timing mats can say, but is there an official at that line with their stopwatch? And as soon as they start, click the button. Okay, car, go get them. I don't think so. I can't see that being the case. I imagine the last person starts. I imagine someone moseys over to this car and fires it up. And then they've just got this pace they're supposed to drive for the rest of the course. Okay. Do we know how strict the driver is? Do we know how in tune they are with the running situation? And again, you can't say that anything is 100% accurate with that system. What they suggest in the article, and what I think I like the most, since you about know roughly what between 11:20 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. you're going to get that last person across the start line. Is that fair to say? Can they look back at all the years and find the average start time of when that is? I am sure it's between 11:20 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. Fine. The 5:30 cutoff. That's really where I think it's at. 5:30 on the dot. Be ready. Shut it down, as Liz Lemon would say. Shut it down at 5:30. This moving target with this maybe car and uncertainty for runners, especially on a day with rough conditions, you're just leaving it open for criticism, Boston, because I'm kind of criticizing you right now. I think that's a really bad look, and I don't think you need any more bad looks right now. You've had several. The Cure Station last year that you shut down of the primarily Black people, not a great look. Your overall elitist appearance to, people who aren't elite, not a great look. Now you are denying someone an official finishing time over 37 seconds, a subjective 37 seconds. You can't do that, especially because of what it takes for someone who's going to be running 6 hours and 37 seconds. What it takes for us to get there, it's not a qualifying time. It's not a lottery. It's money, and it's a lot of money. And so 37 seconds, no finish, no sixth star. No, be better. Be better. I get it. You're Boston. You're the elite. I understand all this. But if you are going to open it up to charities and you're going to open it up to, we have finished 25 years previous, but we're older now, at least by 25 years, or we're going to open it up to slower runners, you got to start dropping some of that elitist attitude. You really do. 37 seconds, and you've denied that person everything. Everything. The two things I've wanted most in this running world, I have one of. I have Boston. Boston in the 6 stars. And in 37 seconds, you took it away from that person. I don't agree. I don't agree with how you have handled the setup of that race, or at least how you've handled the setup of the finish. If you want to make it a 5:30 cutoff time, strict cutoff time, do it. Because then every runner knows. We all know 5:30. You're staring at your watch. Okay, I see the finish line. 5:28:15. Holy crap, here I go. And you kick it and you get across that finish line. Now, look, if someone finishes at 5:30 p.m. and 37 seconds, then you know what? They did not finish in their time. Okay. I hate it. I hate it. And if it were me personally, I would have more of a grace period. Like, you finished. We did not officially tear down the finish line or stop people from coming here. You've crossed at 26.2 plus, because it's long. You're a finisher. But I get it if you have to have that time. And if they come in after that time, you had the time and it was set in stone. This is a moving target, as the article says. And I think a moving target is not fair to runners. And a moving target by 37 seconds is absolute hogwash. That person, you need to amend your time, give them their Boston, and give them their World Marathon Major 6 stars. That's my opinion. Because you can't, beyond a shadow of a doubt, say they didn't finish. You can't say, oh, they didn't compete it in time. Who knows? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. And yeah, maybe they took the time from the very last person, and then they took their time and they did the math and they found out, no, 37 seconds over. You allowed them to finish. You handed them a medal. If you hand them a medal, they're a finisher of your freaking race, man. You handed them the medal. You handed them the 6-star medal. They've got their medals. They've completed it. Give them their official time. Give them their star on Abbott.com or whatever it is. And look, if you want to cut them off, fine. Get the police line up. Sorry, can't cross. Race is over. Please defer out of this gate and go find your family. It sucks and it's harsh, but it's better than allowing someone to finish, celebrate, think that they've done something, and then you take it away from them. Just rug right out from underneath their feet. Whoop! And you're done. So that is how I see this particular brouhaha. I would love your opinion in the comments here on Facebook once this is posted. If you listen through any of the other services, just the audio services, or YouTube, well, YouTube, you can leave comments. The Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, all that stuff, please find us on Facebook and feel free to join the conversation about this race. I'd love to know what you think. Next week on this episode, we're going to have our guest. We're going to be talking about the same situation, but now we're going to be talking about the aftermath. So I have said my piece. You know what I think. A lot of people have said their piece and they know what they think. And the argument now, and I cannot coin this phrase, I didn't come up with it, I've seen it in regards to this. Next week, we're going to have the conversation of elite versus elitist. Because now that is what has reared its ugly, ugly head. Elite versus elitist. And we're going to have a very special guest on to talk about that next week. So next week's show, we're going to talk about that. Next week, I'm supposed to be in Manhattan, Kansas for the Bill Snyder Memorial Highway, not Memorial. I add that every time. He's alive. He's fine. Bill's fine. Sorry. The Bill Snyder Highway Half Marathon. I'm actually not going to be able to make that race. I have a back injury. My back is preventing me from running right now. I did 2 miles yesterday in agonizing pain. So a half marathon is not going to work right now. And I'm trying to get myself healthy and ready for the full marathon in Fargo, North Dakota at the end of this month. So if you were going to Bill Snyder simply because Kyle said he was going to be there, I do apologize. I don't think that applies to anyone. Have a great race, though, at Bill Snyder. Everyone have a great Memorial Day weekend. If you can believe that's what's coming up next. It is Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start to summer, but we're darn near there. So have a great run at Bill Snyder. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Leave your comments respectfully. If it is not respectful, if it is just blasted with curses and insults, I'm going to take that stuff down as fast as I can possibly do it. But please, I would love to know what you think on this issue because it's a big one. It certainly has made a lot of ruckus in the running world, and rightfully so. But let's talk about it. What do you think of the moving target at Boston? I have a solution. What's your solution? Do you think, hey, this is how it is, man? Like that them's the breaks of running Boston. We know that the World Marathon Majors don't all do the same thing. Is that also an issue? Is it an issue that it is different from Chicago to London to New York to Tokyo to Berlin to Boston? What do you think? Because that's something else too. If you're going to be part of the Big Six, shouldn't they all have the same rules? Should they all have the same finish? Should they all have the same grace period, or should they all have the same rigid results? Again, what do you think about that? That's just a question popped into my head right now. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. Hopefully it looks better, sounds better. I thank you all very much for tuning in every week as you do. Our numbers are going up, and I love it. I'm here for it. I always welcome your suggestions. If there's a topic you'd like, I welcome any recommendations or races you think we should do. Please make sure that you keep playing along on all of our social media platforms. Follow us or subscribe to the YouTube channel on the Back of the Pack podcast. And then I actually did a TikTok yesterday. So Back of the Pack podcast does have a TikTok, and I put something out there. Is it great? No. Is it something? Yes. Yes, it is. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Back to Back podcast. I am your host, Kyle Walker. It is my pleasure, as always. Everyone have a safe week of training. We'll be back next week with our very special guest to continue talking about the Boston Marathon brouhaha, elite versus elitist. So please join us next week.